The NBA season tips off tonight, and while the Chicago Bulls do not take the court for the first time until tomorrow, still a lot of interesting storylines around the Chicago Bulls. Marc Stein lists the Chicago Bulls as one of the more fascinating teams heading into the 2024-25 season. We're going to talk about why on that. Also, we're going to talk about where the Bulls rank in NBA's initial season opening power rankings, and a new Zach LaVine trade rumor pops up. We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off with this. Marc Stein lists the Chicago Bulls as the Bulls are absolutely fascinating. Going to say this: how can the Bulls, with all the vets they still have and with more than 6 teams out there fielding rosters that are way worse than Chicago's, lose enough to make sure that they keep a pick that would be disastrous to surrender? Squandering a lottery pick would be legitimately devastating given the players beyond Cooper Flagg, expected to be available in June, like the Rutgers duo of Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. And this is echoing a lot of sentiments that are within the Chicago Bulls fan base. I think a lot of people right now are questioning, are the Bulls going to be good enough, right, to outright come out of the play-in, even though some Bulls fans have picked the Bulls to be at bottom of 6 seed. I don't know what y'all smoking. I don't agree, but hey, if y'all right, y'all right. And then outside of that, you of course have some Bulls fans that look at this team and question if they're going to even be able to win 30 games, right? So I sit somewhere in the middle of that. I've been very consistent. I think between 30 to 35-ish wins for this Bulls team is somewhere that I expect them to be. And while that is still a team that has a very bad record, it's not outwardly as bad enough to just hold on to your lottery pick. Now, that still does run the chance of it being a lottery pick, right? But it doesn't necessarily run the chance of it being, in that top 10 range. And that would be disastrous for the Bulls, right? The worst case scenario for the Bulls this season, right, is that they have a pick that is in the lottery in a deep draft like this, in that it ends up, let's say it ends up 13th or 14th, right at the bottom end of that lottery. But then it will go to the San Antonio Spurs. The Bulls really can't afford that, right? So the Bulls, in going all in on this roster with the vets that they do have that Marc Stein points out, they better well outrightly make the playoffs, right? So it's going to be an interesting balance for this Bulls team because you're looking at it for a couple of different ways, right? This young team comes together, with Josh Giddey at the point, Lonzo Ball looking good again, right? And we'll get into some of the reasons and some of the keys for this Bulls team heading into the season, that you hope that those things are going to work out for the Bulls. The Bulls won 39 games last year, and that put them in the lottery, right? That put them at pick number 11. And you look at a team like the Atlanta Hawks that did have 36 wins, they end up getting the first overall pick. So it depends on where you sit, right? And the Bulls, if they do get into are one of these play-in teams and don't make it out the play-in, of course they go into the lottery. That doesn't guarantee a top 10, right? And so when you look at some of the teams that are outwardly worse than the Chicago Bulls, the Washington Wizards for sure, the Charlotte Hornets absolutely, the Brooklyn. Let me not say that, because the Charlotte Hornets, if LaMelo Ball can stay healthy, I actually think that team could win 40 games this year. But again, it's a tough bet to say that he could stay healthy. But the Brooklyn Nets, definitely. Like, we know that the Brooklyn Nets are going to be a terrible basketball team. And so, the Detroit Pistons as well, now they can make a step up. They have a lot of young, promising pieces on that team, but they haven't won a lot of games yet, right? And so the teams that I have clearly above the Bulls this season is Boston, New York, Milwaukee, Cleveland, the Orlando Magic, the Indiana Pacers. Those are 6 teams right there. I have all 6 of those teams being better than the Bulls. The Philadelphia 76ers could possibly be, right? I think they're going to be better than the Bulls regardless, but with now concerns around Joel Embiid and Paul George, you never know how things are going to go for that team. But if that team can stay relatively healthy, that's another team. That's 7 teams in the Eastern Conference above the Bulls. The Miami Heat are another team that, with their coaching and their depth and stuff like that, having Bam, if Jimmy is locked in, Jimmy's going to be out to prove a point. That's another team. That's 8 teams right there in the Eastern Conference that can be better than the Chicago Bulls. And then you look at the Western Conference. Now, the thing with the Western Conference is a team like the Houston Rockets missed the play-in last year and won 41 games. So even with the Bulls being in the Eastern Conference, yeah, they're going to be teams in the Western Conference that win 40 games or may even miss the playoffs. but that's going to put the Bulls at a worse record than them if they stay in the spot that I am. But a team like the Memphis Grizzlies that won 27 games last year, that team very well is going to win more games than what they did last year. Even the San Antonio Spurs winning 22 games. They're going to win more games than they did last year. Now, the Utah Jazz, the Portland Trail Blazers, some big questions about those teams for sure that you're looking at. The Clippers, with them losing Paul George, Kawhi already being hurt. We'll see where they are. So the Bulls, I don't think it's as daunting as a thing for the Bulls to have a bottom 10 record in the NBA. But we also know that this team isn't aiming, and they should not aim. Tanking is not the answer here for the Bulls, right? So, or some would say tanking is the answer to try to maximize your chances to keep your pick. And this is going to be one of those things that is such a fascinating storyline to watch for a team that clearly is still in this mediocre spot. They're still mid, right? And if this is a team that competes and fights hard and makes the play-in tournament, but then ends up not making out the play-in, and then it goes into the lottery, but then has a pick that's lower than 10, that's just a crazy scenario to be in for the Bulls. So I'm sure that the disastrous part of this does make this an entertaining team to watch this season because you just don't know the way that it's going to go. Now, of course, as the trade deadline looms, if the Bulls do start selling off pieces like a Torrey Craig to a team that needs a veteran, forward there, if a Zach LaVine trade ever materializes and goes down, which I'm kind of in the camp now that I think Zach LaVine may finish this season a Chicago Bull and may get kicked to the offseason. Vooch still being here, right? What do the Bulls do with him? There's some questions that the Bulls could answer over the course of the season that could kind of make that more clear on where the Bulls are going to sit. But listen, the Bulls are, for just the fact of the sink or swim nature of the Chicago Bulls, right? That's one of the things that make this team fun to watch. And that brings us to the next thing I want to talk about. Why the Bulls will be at least an interesting team to watch. The first thing, the fun offense. We're going to play a fun brand of offense. And we're going to watch young players try to figure it out. Now, they're going to have veterans around them to help them, but the Dalen Terrys, the Julian Phillips, even the THTs, right? Like these are players that are really young, and, some of them have had more experience than others. Demonis Busilis, right? We'll get into him. He has his own section. But the fun offense and the offensive nature of this team and watching these young guys figure it out is a huge part of why this team could be really fun this season. I think we're gonna run one of the quicker pace offenses in the league. Now, quicker pace doesn't mean winning games, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean an efficient offense either. But I think just that is going to be a kind of a more fun brand of basketball to watch than what we've watched the last couple of years. The slow dribbling up the court, because we had to fit around the style of DeMar DeRozan. Like when you have a player like DeMar on your team, you have to change your play style to maximize his talents. And that's for anybody. When you build a team, you have to try to pick a play style that's out there to maximize the talents. Well, now the majority of this roster actually is going to benefit from a more up-tempo offense. Of course, the young guys, right? And Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry, these guys are really going to benefit from it. Io's going to benefit from it. Lonzo's really good in a system like that. Demonis Busilis is going to work in that. Jalen Smith, right? Really, the only player that really doesn't really play better in an up-tempo style is Nikola Vucevic. Even Torrey Craig, with being a long-in-the-tooth veteran, if you look at the course of his career, he's actually thrived in a more up-tempo, higher-pace offense because he's able to then get easier three-point shots or attack the rim a little bit better, right? So everything kind of fits around that. And because now we have a roster that fits that style, and that is a style that we've seen it. They're playing it we had the quickest pace in the league in the preseason. And so I don't expect that to maintain true, right? I think the Knicks are going to play, the Kings are going to play a faster style. Even with DeMar DeRozan being on that team, of course, the Pacers are going to play a crazy style that's out there pace-wise, but the Bulls are going to play that more interesting style of offense. And then, of course, you get things of like Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White taking another step. Just watching the season that they had last year and the questions now coming in to how do they build off of that? Is it fascinating enough storyline on top of, let's not overlook other teams, other front offices, other fans from other teams are going to be watching with Ayo and Kobe free agents at the end of next season. There are going to be teams that are watching to see, can these guys do it again? And then can we maybe pry those guys away from the Chicago Bulls with offering more money or whatever else, or offering them a situation where they can actually win at, right? So that's going to be a thing out there. Now, I hope that they stay with the Chicago Bulls, but let's not make no mistake about it. That brings a different level of national media attention as well for players, young players, because even at the end of their deals, they'll be 26 and 27 years old, respectively, I think. And so in that, there's still players that are going to be in their prime, right? That are unrestricted free agents that could possibly be coming off 3 straight seasons of them playing the best basketball of their careers. And if that happens, that's going to bring a new level of attention. But for the Bulls fans, seeing guys that are homegrown guys that we drafted, Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, seeing them take their games to the next level and continue to flesh out and round out their games is going to be really fun there. And then, of course, Modest Bucilis, the draft pick that many people had as one of the best picks in that draft, right? People labeled it as a steal, him falling to the Bulls at number 11 because of circumstances. He was projected by most mock drafts to go in the top 5. The Bulls got him. He's just an exciting type rookie, right? Modest Bucilis is the type of rookie that people get excited about both in your franchise and out of your franchise because he's going to play that style. What we're playing in fast pace fits him, but he's also going to do some of the eye-popping things between the dunks, between the steals, between the block shots. Watching him develop defensively for my X's and O's guys, like that's a thing that's always fun for me to watch. Is how a rookie grows and develops over the course of the season. I've said this many times before. Watching how Modest Bucilis learns from the mistakes he makes in month 1 and how by month 2 and 3 he's no longer making those mistakes. That's going to be a fun part of the game to watch for Modest Bucilis. And I think also something that's been underrated about Modest Bucilis is his basketball IQ. And I don't think we talk enough about that. Modest Bucilis is a really smart basketball player, right? Now, the passion, the drive that he has, the edge that he has, the fact that he's going to be one of those players talking shit out there. He could end up turning into one of the better shit talkers in the game of basketball. But the fact is that there's IQ behind that. It's not just moxie. It's not just, vibe. It's actually skill that's behind that. And because of that, it makes it really exciting to watch Modest Bucilis grow and develop for this Bulls team this season. And then you have the return of Zach LaVine on a revenge tour, maybe in some instances, in a case, right? That the fact that Zach LaVine has spent an offseason of hearing people talk about what he wanted, where he can go, why he's not going to go anywhere, why teams don't want him, why he's overpaid, why he sucks. Listen, and Zach LaVine, if he can use that focused motivation, right? I don't need a Zach LaVine that's just coming out there to shoot, to put up numbers. I need a Zach LaVine that's out there to say, hey, no, I could be one of the best players in this league, not only scoring-wise, but I'm also going to be locked in defensively. Yeah, we don't have Alex Caruso and Javonte Green to play those passing lanes anymore, but guess what? I came out of the preseason averaging almost 2 steals per game. Look at me, right? I need a Zach LaVine that's motivated, and I think we've seen Zach LaVine motivated before, and when Zach LaVine locks in, he's hard to stop offensively, right? And with him talking about a renewed focus defensively and ready to make an impact defensively as well, if that happens, it's going to be fun to watch. And then, of course, Lonzo Ball. Now, this is something that has the basketball world in its grasp, right? People are looking to see what this season really looks like for Lonzo. He's looked much better and ahead of many people's schedules and where they thought Lonzo would be in this return. And while whatever amount of games that he plays, it's just that story of Lonzo, when he's on the court, eyes are going to be on it. And eyes are going to be wanting to see what Lonzo does because much like with Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, Lonzo Ball being a free agent at the end of this year, if Lonzo looks solid, plays more games than he misses, there are going to be teams that say, hey, we may be able to take a calculated risk on Lonzo because guess what? We have such a framework on this team that we have to maybe monitor him on back-to-backs, things like that. But listen, so there are going to be those aspects of it as well. And then lastly, maybe want to throw in as well now that we know Josh Giddey did not get a contract extension by the deadline. We had a breaking news episode on that. Josh Giddey as well. Josh Giddey out there to prove it, to earn his next contract, to prove to people what he can be in this league. I think these are all fascinating storylines, and this is what makes the Bulls a fascinating team. And to watch these things develop for this team this season, it's going to be fun to watch, man. And we're going to be covering it right here every day on Chicago Bulls Central. So make sure you guys stay in tune with us and hit that subscribe button. All right, moving into the next topic for today. The Bulls come in on NBA's initial power rankings at 24th. Now, this isn't too much of a surprise, right? We know there's more national media doubt around the Bulls than there's faith in the Chicago Bulls right now. And part of that is because of where this front office has been, where the roster sits as well, right? A lot of people don't have a lot of faith in this Bulls roster and know what we're doing. And also I think there's a lot of doubt around this front office as well. And so when you look at this, right, the Bulls came in at 24th. They were ranked between the Charlotte Hornets at number 25 and the Atlanta Hawks at number 23, the Toronto Raptors at number 22, the Clippers at number 21, right? And the Utah Jazz at number 26 if you go behind it. And actually, that grouping of teams, regardless of where you have the ranking in, I can understand that grouping of teams all kind of being around each other. They all have similar questions, right? With the Charlotte Hornets at number 25, right below the Bulls, it does come back to LaMelo Ball. Can he be healthy or not? That team was a 43-win team the last time LaMelo Ball was fully healthy, and that was a team that didn't have Brandon Miller. That was a team that didn't have Mark Williams. That was a team that did not have the talent that this team now has. You look at what they have as well. Grant Williams, Josh Green, Seth Curry on that bench unit as well. Brandon Miller, Miles there as well. So they have talent on that roster. The biggest question there is, of course, is the health aspect of it. The Atlanta Hawks kind of figuring out what's going to happen with their new picks that they have there. Jalen Johnson gets a new deal there. They still have Bogdan Bogdanovic, DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella. They still got vets on that team as well, much like the Bulls have, that they're trying to wait and see, right? The Toronto Raptors, building around Scotty Barnes, having RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, players that have really good upside. They have veterans on that team as well as Bruce Brown, Jakob Poeltl. Those are players as well that could do something. And then, of course, the Clippers, they're a huge question mark just because of Kawhi Leonard. You don't know what's going to happen there. So that's like the what can be grouping for this for teams. And I'm not really surprised that the Bulls sit in that spot. I'm not surprised that. I know there are going to be some Bulls fans that say, there is no way that we should be ranked that low. There's going to be some Bulls fans that say, hey, I'm surprised we're not ranked lower. And I think that all plays into the uncertainty around this Bulls team. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I would not be surprised if the Bulls are either much lower or much higher after the first month of the season, right? Like, this Bulls team faces a gauntlet to start off this season. They start off the season with an extremely tough record. And that just is what it is. We start off against New Orleans. We got Milwaukee there. They're probably going to be missing Chris Middleton. Then we got OKC, Memphis, Orlando. Brooklyn game I'm not too worried about. Utah, we're around the same area. Then Dallas, Minnesota, Atlanta, Cleveland, New York, Cleveland again, Houston, Detroit. Like, this is all takes us through the first 30 days of the season, basically. So the Bulls are a lot of what this Bulls team can be, the bits and flashes. So let me make no mistake. Teams in the first month can still improve, right? They can still be working out some things. They can still be finding their balance. But we'll know a lot about the potential, I think, of this team after the first month. And I think that's reflected in the power rankings, right? Would I love to see the Bulls a little bit higher? Yeah, absolutely. But I think in being fair, and that's one thing I always try to do in this, is be fair in my evaluation of my team. Yes, this is my team that I've rooted for my whole entire life, right? But I try to be fair in also the evaluation of where the Chicago Bulls team is. And the fact of the matter is, it's in a place right now where you can't be certain about anything. And I say you can't be certain that this team is going to be terrible. You can't be certain that this team is going to be good. And you definitely can't be certain this team is going to be great, right? It all comes down to how the balance works out, how the coaching staff is able to get the best out of these players, how some of the players on this team develop as well. And I think ultimately, like, where the Bulls sit at this season is going to be determined by the growth that's done. And hopefully there's a lot more growth than what some people are expecting from this team. Because, listen, this is still a Bulls team with talent. Make no mistake about it. As much doubt as you can throw on the Bulls, this still is a team that has talent. And anybody who tells you the Bulls team just isn't talented, it's just foolish. We have talent on this team. Now, sometimes it takes more than just raw talent. It's how it comes together. Coaching plays a huge part in that. There's a lot of things that play a part in a team having a successful season. Can the Bulls be one of those teams is one of those questions, and I can't wait to see the story develop. That's why we play the games, right? That's why we play it. It's to eliminate any and all doubt, because it's all going to be told out there on the court for the Chicago Bulls, and we'll see what that develops into. Now, moving off of that, let's get into the last topic for today. And that is a recent rumor popped up, and I can't remember who initially pointed it out. It was in, I think, the Josh Giddey stream last night, of a Michael Porter Jr. for Zach LaVine trade. Now, this is not a trade rumor. I like to make the difference between that. A trade rumor is, hey, we heard that the Bulls and the Denver Nuggets are talking a trade that could send Michael Porter Jr. to the Chicago Bulls. That's not what's happening here. This is more so a trade suggestion, right? A possible deal that could go down between the teams. And here's the thing. It'll be the teams swapping their problems, but they're still very similar, right? Like Zach LaVine and Michael Porter Jr., while very different in the way that they get their scoring, right? And I do think there's something to be said about if the Bulls were to trade, and the rumor deal, let me get into that. It's bad podcasting on my part. The rumor deal is the Denver Nuggets would Zach LaVine outright, and the Chicago Bulls would get Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji. Now, the thing in this that it would be is that, hey, Michael Porter Jr. makes less than what Zach LaVine makes, right? Now, that's why you have to factor in 2 players. Now, keep in mind, the Bulls can't take 2 players back because we have a full 15-man roster. So this would mean that the Bulls are probably cutting THT to make room for this deal, taking advantage of his non-guaranteed portion of his deal. That's going to already make some Bulls fans to say, hey, are we giving up THT? Because a lot of Bulls fans now are looking at THT to be a key rotation piece, right? But what this does offer is that it would be that the Bulls are getting a player in Michael Porter Jr. that's younger than Zach LaVine, that still is on a contract for the same length of time, but that contract is less, right? Zach LaVine is making almost $45 million this year, and Michael Porter Jr. is making about $8 million less than that. Now, his deal does cap out at $40 million at the end of it, but you're taking advantage of, Zach LaVine right now has a cap hit of $43 million. So you're getting some savings there, right? You're getting some savings there as far as just the main pieces in that deal. Zach LaVine is under contract into 2026-27, where he does have a player option. Michael Porter Jr. is under contract until 2027-28, where he becomes an unrestricted free agent. Well, if Zach LaVine puts up that player option, they'll both be free agents at the same time. The difference is in 2026-27, MPJ is only making $40 million, whereas in 2026-27, for the Chicago Bulls, Zach LaVine would be making $48 million. So again, an $8 million savings there for the Bulls, theoretically, right? And in MPJ, you're getting a player that's, of course, imperfect, that has his own major injury concerns as well. People forget we're not that far off removed where people question if Michael Porter Jr. was going to be able to make a return to basketball because of his back injuries, right? Now, what also do you gain from Michael Porter Jr.? You get more legit size, right? At 6'10", 218 pounds, Michael Porter Jr. is more of a fit for that 3 position than what Zach LaVine has been. Michael Porter Jr. is also a solid enough 3-point shooter as well that you can look at with coming off screens, those type of things. The way that the Bulls want to use Zach LaVine this season, you could see Michael Porter Jr. theoretically fitting into that as well. Now, let's be clear. Michael Porter Jr. has never scored, what Zach LaVine has done at his best, but that's because of the team that he's on. He's always been, 3rd, maybe 4th in the offensive game plan. When you look at Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, also Aaron Gordon, who just signed an extension there as well. So you're looking at those things, right? But look at their career numbers, right? The career averages is the thing that I'm going to go to here. While Zach LaVine for his career has averaged 15 shots per game, Michael Porter Jr.'s averaged 12, right? And he's done that at a 49% shooting clip for his career. Zach LaVine, 46% shooting. 3-point range, Zach LaVine has averaged 5.8 3-pointers per game for his career. He's hit that at a 38% clip. Michael Porter Jr., 5.9 at a 41% clip. Michael Porter Jr. is also a better rebounder than Zach LaVine, right? So he's better at that. He gets into the steals more. They average around the same amount of steals. He turns the ball over less than Zach LaVine. So you're really looking at that aspect of it. And the question is that at 26 years old, you're getting a player that's 3 years younger than Zach LaVine. At the end of this deal, he'll be the age that Zach LaVine is now, right? And so theoretically, he kind of fits that timeline with Kobe and Io a little bit more. And he's a player that kind of has already naturally been into a role where he's been a complementary piece. Would he fit better next to Kobe White and Josh Giddey is the question that you're asking there. Catch and shoot, him and Zach LaVine are about the same percentage there. So this is a deal that I know that Bulls fans would question, and they are right to do so. But this is the type of deal that maybe could go down, right? I'm saying maybe, right? It's a trade suggestion. It's a rumor right now. Take it with a grain of salt. But if this is the thing that would happen here, if the Bulls were to do that, I could see where it could fit. Now, the question, though, is that with MPJ, if you do make a trade for him, what does that mean for Modest Bucilis, right? Who I still think long-term is a 4, but I think he's still going to play a lot of 3 minutes right away with his weight, but he's going to round out to being that 4. Does that then phase out? Is that insurance then, hey, if Patrick Williams doesn't take that step up, cool. We then have dynamic forward pairing of Michael Porter Jr., Modest Bucilis, and then you still got Julian Phillips in the wing there as well. So let me know what you guys think on this rumor. I look at this and I say, I can understand because the money would work. In that aspect of things, it's still not something that I'm necessarily saying, oh, there we gotta pull the trigger on this now. Part of me still would almost rather just keep Zach LaVine. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Part of me would rather just keep Zach LaVine in the case like this. But again, listen, it's not all on me. You look at Zeke Naji as well. He's a 23-year-old player. Hasn't really showed a whole lot either, so it's more of a throw-in this deal. Is that worth waiving THT to make a spot for that? Or maybe you find a third team to reroute him to? Maybe something like that. But let me know what you guys think on it all down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end everything on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.